those things are hard, especially when, you're trying to live as much of a normal life as you can. And especially around holidays and things like that, where people ask you to go places, or friends, children have birthday parties and they try to include you. And you're not able to go. And some people understand and some people don't. And it's severe. It's life or death. And right. I think sometimes we forget that and we think, oh, we'll be fine. He'll be fine. But really, it's scary. Yeah. It really is.
It's severe, it's life or death. These words certainly hit a chord because it is a reality for a lot of these families that we feature. Don't let that quote keep you away. There is a lot of joy and encouragement in today's episode. I'm Seth Carnell, and this is the Go Shout Love podcast. We are talking with Cassie, who is the mother to Jack. Jack was one of 4 families last October as we featured the city of Pittsburgh. Jack has Lissencephaly Miller-Dieker syndrome. And in layman's terms, and as Cassie describes it, when our brain is nice and bumpy, his is smooth. She will explain that more as a refresher, and you can hear more about his medical journey in episode 33 when we originally met Jack and his family. Cassie talks about being in the hospital with Jack when COVID took over, and how they and the medical staff responded. Jack has respiratory issues, and Cassie tells us of all the precautions that her and her husband Jim are taking to protect themselves and 8-year-old Jack. Now, Cassie also gives some great advice on how to deal with not exactly being okay with what is going on in your life. There are options that help you cope or allow you to not feel so alone. A little disclaimer here, if you know someone who has a child with a diagnosis or is dealing with something similar, this episode, this conversation, has a lot of good inside of it and can be helpful. Please share it with them. Cassie is very real and open with her situation, and her thoughts and advice come from a place of reality and encouragement. That is one of the goals of this podcast, to help people and parents of these kiddos not feel so alone and defeated. If this is your first time listening, thanks for listening. Go Shout Love exists to do amazing things for amazing families with kids on rare medical journeys. Go to our website, goshout.love, to find out more about what that means. One of our co-directors, Josh Veach, is leading this interview with Cassie. Very grateful for the questions he asks, and even more grateful to Cassie for being available to answer them. To begin this conversation, here is Josh.
Well, Cassie, welcome back to the Go Shout Love podcast. It's so good to have you, and thanks for being here.
Well, thanks for having me.
Yeah. So we got to meet your son, Jack, and your family when we got together. Gosh, that was the end of last summer in featuring, and then we featured your family along with some other Pittsburgh area families in October of last year. And so if someone's listening and they weren't following along Go Shout Love and didn't get to meet your family at that time, just give us a little introduction to Jack and to you and your family, and share a little bit about yourselves.
Sure. Well, Jack actually just had a birthday on Saturday, so he turned 8.
Yes. Happy birthday, Jack.
Yeah. Happy birthday, Jack. So we live in Altoona, Pennsylvania, and my husband, Jim, and I live with my parents. So Jack's Grammy and Pappy. So we're one big happy family. Jack was born with Lissencephaly Miller-Dieker syndrome. So his brain is smooth, where ours is nice and bumpy. Every day he has seizures. He's tube fed and very delayed developmentally, so he doesn't have a lot of head control, and he needs 24/7 care. He sleeps with a CPAP, and he's been doing pretty well lately, so I'm going to knock on some wood here.
Yeah. And I know I say this only because in following your story, I know that you guys handle these things with such courage, but then also humor too, that you even had, I know some of his medical challenges that he's faced recently with GI issues. You even had some emoji balloons at his birthday, if I remember correctly.
We did. We ended up having a poop party because Jack has been full of poop.
Yeah, that's been one of the challenges he's been facing.
Yes, and we actually, I had a call from GI today, and we're able to be seen finally sometime here in the near future by GI, and hopefully be able to figure out some of these GI issues. But yeah, we definitely love to have some laughs. You have to laugh because this life is hard.
Right.
So bringing humor in just keeps us all a little sane.
Sure. Well, so outside, what else has gone on in your family? Give us an update on what's happened since we last got to chat with you in October.
Oh, wow. Do you have all day? Yeah, so Jack's been in and out of the hospital with different respiratory issues. That's pretty much our normal. We had Christmas Day at our local ER in Altoona, and we were able to go home though because we had a doctor that is well versed in Jack, so she knew that I was comfortable taking him home and doing antibiotics at home and just upping our respiratory therapy. So he's kind of been a little off and on with respiratory over the course of the last couple months. That's since died down, and then we started to have some GI issues. He's getting bigger. We had to change formulas. We have tried to do some new things with his care as well, and because of Go Shout Love, we were able to get a ceiling lift track to help us lift him and transport him into chairs and things like that. So for his birthday, actually, we just had his bathroom fixed up a little bit. We have an elevated tub that we built special whenever we moved in with my parents and added on. But we got a shower chair for him, and that rolls right into the shower, and we got a barn door to make more room, without the door swinging.
Right.
So we're able to take him over the lift, over his bed, drop him into the shower chair, not really drop him, but lower him into the shower chair, and then wheel him into the bathroom and slide him on into the shower. So that's been really helpful with his care. And then, we've just had some GI issues. He seems really bloated, and we actually were in the hospital right before all of the COVID-19 started to happen. It was that first week and a half of March. So I was working from the hospital. I work at St. Francis as a instructor in the education department, and I was able to do all my work, thankfully, online. And then when we were getting discharged, everybody went online anyhow. So It was a big adjustment for everyone. And my husband is a truck driver and was very worried about being out in the public with Jack. So he actually took some time off too. So we've had a lot of family time lately. So it feels really good to be able to be home with family and feel safe.
Yeah. Well, what was it? I mean, you mentioned that Jack had been dealing with respiratory issues, which are obviously a primary concern of anyone that, comes down with COVID-19. What was it like to be in the hospital with that? And just the fact that, Jack already kind of has, some, a compromised immune system and there's extra precautions that you would normally take anyway. What was it like from an emotional and just mental standpoint to be in there while all those things were flaring up, and cases were picking up, things like that?
Yeah, it was kind of surreal. I feel like I missed a lot of things because of being in the hospital when it was all kind of coming to a head there. And we were in the ED, and things were definitely different. They seemed more cautious. Everybody was masking up. gowning up more. Then when we got into his actual room, we actually were in, have you ever heard of the ball in the wall rooms? They're pressurized.
Oh, no, I guess I haven't.
Yeah, and I can't think of all of the medical terms for it, but it has to do with the air pressure in the room, and they have a special filtration system. So we were lucky enough to be in one of those rooms, and those were the kind of rooms that they would put COVID patients in.
Got it.
To keep that air, I guess, safer.
Yeah.
So we kind of felt safe in our little room.
Yeah.
We ended up on a floor that we spent a lot of time on, the neuro floor, and had nurses that have cared for him in the past. So that was comforting as well. So I kind of look at it from a different standpoint where I felt safe at Children's, and I almost was like, should we leave? Like, should we go out into the world, or should we stay in this little room and have, people caring for us? But I'm really glad that we were able to get out when we did, because then things got a whole lot worse.
Right.
They were limiting visitors. You could only have one assigned parent with your child. If we would have had to go back into the ED, because I've had some friends that have taken their kiddos over, and they, like, their husband wasn't, like, the dad wasn't allowed to come in, like, had to wait in the car, couldn't even go into the ED with the mom and the child. So I think we lucked out in that standpoint. But it was stressful. It was hard, being away from family as usual. It's so much a part of our normal, though, that I just take everything in stride and try to, keep moving no matter what comes our way. Yeah. So coronavirus wasn't going to get us down. Yeah. We were keeping Jack in his bubble no matter what. Yeah. So we had to change more than the way that we take care of Jack. Kind of stayed the same, but we had to change what we did. We were more cautious. We were, and we still are, like, wearing masks, washing hands way more than normal, and just not letting anyone around him, and trying to limit who we were around.
Right.
So we wouldn't bring anything to Jack. So.
Yeah. And are you still able to work from home?
Yes.
Awesome.
Yes. I've been working from home. So we finished out the semester, and our summer courses have started. So that has been great. And my husband just went back to work last week, was his first week back. And things are pretty slow. So his new routine is when he gets home, he comes right upstairs and gets a shower before going anywhere near Jack.
Yeah.
So we're just being extra careful.
Yeah, it's definitely important. And like you said, I'm sure that there's an extra level of fear or uncertainty in a season like this when any kid that's in kind of the same sort of scenario that Jack's in, as far as, making sure that he's not exposed to anything that is going to be extreme for him, which might not be, a cold or something like that. But, you guys are already prepared as much as anybody, I would assume. Like, you're more prepared because you've already learned to take all those extra precautions and stuff like that. And
right.
I feel like in a lot of ways we're the rest of the world that hasn't had to go through journeys like you guys have had. We're learning a lot from you guys, as far as, like, well, here's the secrets, here's what you do and don't do. Here's how you learn to think about others first when it comes to, making sure you stay home if you're not feeling 100%, or you can tell something's off. I was just having this conversation with somebody else about how we kind of live in a society where that kind of stick with it and go to work when you're sick has kind of been glorified. And hopefully now is the time where we kind of shift that. As a culture, we can kind of realize that that's not as great as we've, made it out to be. To show up to work sick is not brave; it's irresponsible. And I think that it will change people's thinking a lot about how they will react in the future, and how we'll continue. I think people will be more vigilant about hand washing and, keeping germs away and staying home when you're sick. I think
I think people are probably a little bit more scared now.
Yeah. And I think there's for some people, I think that's absolutely true. I think there's some that still maybe question some of the measures that have been taken and trying to, in some ways they minimize the damage that could be done. But I think a lot of them probably don't understand how severe something like this could be for someone who is more at risk. And so I'm just curious in your all's experience, Jack's 8 years old now. Have you had any seasons where a cold or something that other people might think of as minor has created a really scary situation?
Oh, absolutely. Jack has had rhinovirus, which is the common cold, a bunch of times. And we've ended up in the ICU and close to being on a ventilator numerous times. And, those things are hard, especially when, you're trying to live as much of a normal life as you can. And especially around holidays and things like that, where people ask you to go places or friends, children have birthday parties and they try to include you. And you're not able to go. And some people understand and some people don't. And it's severe. It's life or death. And right. I think sometimes we forget that and we think, oh, we'll be fine. He'll be fine. But really, it's scary.
Yeah,
it really is.
Each month, we shout love for families through the sale of creative apparel inspired by the kiddos. This month's design is inspired by Molly from Salina, Ohio. Molly is a fighter who constantly pushes herself and her family onward, regardless of the challenges they face. Visit our website, goshout.love, to support Molly through the purchase of a t-shirt, tumbler, hat, or other items, and every item sold in May will be used to help install a wheelchair ramp in Molly's home and in the home of family members who help care for Molly. You can even start a subscription and shout love every month. If you do start a subscription, now you will receive a free Go Shout Love campfire mug while supplies last. You don't even need to use a coupon code. Just head over to the website, add your t-shirt subscription to the cart, and a free mug will be added in there as well.
The realities that we've been facing as far as staying at home and some of the sense of isolation that can come from that. And I think in the beginning, there was a certain level of, there's a lot of fun things online, the online dance parties or read alouds or things like that. It was all new. And you could kind of like, okay, we're going to respond positively and engage in this and engage in that and do these different things that kind of help be isolated but still together type of thing. And there's this, I think, maybe I'm wrong on this, but I feel like there's a certain level of time goes by and some of that newness wears off. And then there's this reality of being alone and limited. And there's a certain element, I think, that for a lot of people, it's really a loss of control. It's a loss of power. They realize that, like, okay, we just can't really just go do whatever we want to do like we used to. And obviously that's a realization is very similar to what you were just talking through, like the precautions that you guys have had to take for 8 years. You've kind of had to learn to live in some ways in isolation. And so I'm wondering if there's any tips or things that you guys have learned during that time that would be beneficial for families navigating the season, whether they have a child that's has a compromised immune system or not. I think probably there's some advice and some lessons that you guys have learned that would apply to all of us. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. You're right. We have been doing this for 8 years. I think that's why it doesn't always feel so different for me, especially. I know, like my husband is different from me where, he goes out to work more than I do. And my parents certainly, they have more of a social life. But we really don't. We stay home a lot and we find joy in doing things at home together. we watch a lot of TV together. We have certain shows that we like to watch together. Jack loves Disney Junior, so we cuddle up and we do those things that we know get a reaction out of him. So just being together in that moment and not always having to have something to do.
Right.
You know, some people I think need to have a plan, and I'm a teacher, so I'm like that, but I've learned a lot through Jack to be able to just kind of let go and be okay in that moment and be okay alone, and be okay to just sit in silence and not always have to have something to say. I find peace in that. We listen to music. We have playlists that we play depending on our mood, and just taking that time to, you know, meditate, pray, think about things that you wouldn't normally give yourself time to just kind of sit and relax and think about. So it's been a process for me to not always be productive, but sometimes it's okay to just sit in that calm and that peace. So that's one thing that we do. The other part of it, I guess, is, you know, trying to keep those relationships alive that you've built with your friends over the years. I have some very great friends, and we text, we'll FaceTime. So I know those things are kind of going on a whole lot more now too, with the video chats and things like that. But you know, I have a strong relationship with the people that I work with. So we have a group text going there, and some of my other friends, you know, we have a group text going. So it's nice to be able to still connect with people, even though, you know, you can't actually be together right now.
Right.
Another thing that really helps me, and it may sound silly, but it's social media. Facebook is where I, you know, feel connected to people. I will share a lot of Jack's story on his Facebook page, the Jack of Our Hearts. It's kind of a coping mechanism for me as well. It's good therapy to be able to talk about what's going on with Jack,
Sure.
especially when he's sick and having a hard time.
Yeah.
And I think that people feel connected to us and to him as well through that page. So I think it's helped a whole lot. At least I hope so.
Sure.
So you know, those are the things that we kind of do as a family, and just try to be together in those moments and not worry so much about what are you going to do next, because honestly, we don't know what's coming next.
Right.
Jack could be having a good day today, and we could be life flighted to Children's Hospital Pittsburgh tomorrow.
Right.
That's the kind of life that we live in. So I think just taking things one day at a time and trying to feel comfortable in those moments of peace and just enjoying being together is what we focus on most.
Yeah. I want to jump back and this, if this is too personal, please say so, and we'll just cut it out and move on. But I feel like you guys have been at this journey long enough that you've probably wrestled with this. But when you kind of going back to the process of meditation and kind of working through the head, really, I mean, the head and the heart, you're trying to navigate the internal, like not just the day-to-day get things done, but the worry and the anxiety and the what ifs and the worst case scenarios that you think about. Because that's true for all of us, regardless of what we're facing. We have these moments where we think ahead, 3, 4, 5 steps ahead in the worst case scenario direction, and it can bring on these big feelings. And I'm sure you guys have had to wrestle with that multiple times. What have you found? How do you get from that weight, that feeling, that place to a place of being able to say, we're going to take this just the day at a time and focus on what we can control and let go of the things that we can't? What are there any habits or things that you've developed personally that have helped you work through those big moments, those big feelings, if that makes sense?
Yeah, I mean, it does, Josh. I mean, I have those big moments still every day in my head. Like there's not a day goes by that I don't think about Jack dying in the end. And it was extreme at the beginning. It's really hard, you know, when you're first diagnosed, when your child's first diagnosed and you are dealing with all of those what ifs and life expectancy. And here we are, and Jack just turned 8. And life expectancy for kiddos with Lissencephaly are like ages 2 to 10. So we're in that, and it's scary every day. But I think a lot of it has to do with support, family support, having someone that you can talk to. I obviously, Mom's my best friend. I talk to her a lot, but it's hard because she's Jack's grandma. So she's having these same feelings that I'm having too. And it's like she has them double because she's worried about me and she's worried about Jack. Right. So sometimes I'm pretty cautious when I talk to her because I don't want to upset her more. But I have a handful, a very close handful of special needs moms that we talk weekly at least. Somebody does have the same diagnosis as Jack. Others don't, but they're closer in our community. Some of them are far away, but you find those commonalities and you relate to that person. So it's about building those relationships with people and being able to talk about your feelings and not keep them inside. When you keep them inside too much, it's just not a good thing. And I've done that to myself, especially in the beginning. I also, do talk therapy. So I talk to a counselor. I used to talk to a counselor weekly, and now it's more like monthly. So just being able to talk to someone outside of the situation is helpful too. And taking that time for yourself, because you need to give and give and give to your child. We all do as parents, whether they're special needs, medically complicated or not. We always give and give and give, but you have to take that time for yourself, no matter how hard it is, to walk away. You have to be able to walk away, take a breather, sit in a room and read, take a nap, go for a walk, ride a bike, work out, those sorts of things. Go get a pedicure, a manicure, a massage. Like you have to take those little pieces of time for yourself. If not, you're just going to drive yourself crazy. So it's in finding someone that you can trust to take care of your child. And in our circumstances, we have wonderful nurses that are able to come in to our home when we're working. So if it's like, okay, I'm going to work today, but I'm going to leave an hour early so I can go get a pedicure or something like that, to do something for myself, or run to Target and walk through Target by myself for like 5 minutes. It's those little pieces and those little things that you can do for yourself that I think helps the overall strength from within. And obviously having like a strong faith base too has just really helped us through, and just trying to learn to take it day by day. And that's an everyday thing. I have to tell myself every day. It does not come easy.
Sure. So I think the things that you outlined from an advice standpoint are so good. I kind of heard 3 different buckets of things there. One, and kind of working in reverse order, is kind of a fresh environments. Change your environment. Let yourself out of the routine a little bit to kind of do something for yourself. Kind of give yourself a new environment for just a few minutes. And then I heard you say professional help, because I think in the counselor, like I think that's true for all of us at probably different seasons, but especially if you're dealing with extra difficult seasons or situations, that's true, to find someone that is trained to help you walk through some of those seasons. And then, and I think this is hard for all of us, but the level of close friends, as you were talking, I kind of thought about it as, who would I call that I could just start the conversation with, hey, I'm not okay right now. Like I need to get right to the heart of a serious struggle that I'm dealing with right now. And who are those people that can just be there? It may not be the same level as far as talking to your counselor, but just on the personal, this is what's going on today. And I need somebody to talk through and be real with. And they don't have to, they're not there to fix it, but they're there to be present in it with you. And those are, I mean, all three of those I think are really valuable for all of us. So thank you for diving into that. As kind of, and this varies a little bit from state to state and even city to city, but as kind of the country starts to open up a little bit and kind of come, see what life is like post COVID. What kind of emotions does that bring for you and your family as far as what's next and what do you think that looks like in the coming months?
I don't see much changing for us. I think we're still going to remain hyper vigilant and limit our travels and our interactions with people because we know how important it is to keep Jack safe. It will be nice to be able to, go out to dinner or something like that in the near future. Like my husband and I, we'll take Jack with us typically, but it would be nice for us to take some time for ourselves too, because you have that relationship to keep going as well.
Right.
So I don't know. I don't see a whole lot changing for us though, because we're so used to keeping him in a bubble, and now we're just kind of keeping us inside that bubble with him. So I bet we'll break out of the bubble a little bit. But Jack's going to remain in the bubble.
Yeah, that's understandable.
So there's some fear there still, obviously. And I think, I almost think it's not like any of this is a blessing, but it's kind of a blessing in disguise to get your eyes wide open again to, we still need to be careful. Jack's doing well right now. It doesn't mean that we can just, go and do whatever. We still need to be careful with him.
Can't take that for granted.
Nope.
Yeah. You had mentioned a little bit earlier on about the track system that you guys were able to purchase coming out of the month that we were able to feature your family along with other Pittsburgh kiddos in October. And this is something, admittedly, that we have not done a great job of doing at Go Shout Love is letting listeners and those who subscribe monthly to the t-shirt subscription and make a purchase during that month. We don't do a great job of letting them see where those dollars went and hear from the families. And so I would just, if you have just a second to share, and I don't mean for this to be a plug for Go Shout Love in any way, but just an honest, for them to know the good that they were able to do. How was that experience? Talk us through what the experience of October was like for your family and from an emotional and relational standpoint, and then also how that track system has impacted your all's life.
Oh my goodness. You have no idea. You're going to probably make me cry now, but October was probably one of our best months, with Jack. It was just so special to be able to see him out there and feeling the love from everybody across the country. Being able to share his story in a larger scale than what we do now. Again, the support of our community was overwhelming. And then, again, large scale with the other families too. From the moment I met you guys in September when we were filming and taking pictures and just getting to know you guys, you just feel a sense of family. So I will plug Go Shout Love all the time. I actually have my Go Shout Love, one of my many Go Shout Love t-shirts on right now.
Yay.
So I have known about your organization for quite some time because of sweet Zane, our amazing Zane, my good friend Cassie, two Cassies, little Cassie, big Cassie. But, so we've supported the organization for a while, but then to feel the support from the organization is is something that it's really hard to put into words. And it's not just about the financial support either. It's, the feeling of connectedness and the community that we all share now too. There's a Facebook group for the moms of Go Shall Love kids, so we're able to connect and seeing the new kiddos come through and just seeing all the good that you guys are able to do just by sharing our stories. So I think it's so important. When we were approached, I felt honored. It's a big deal. And I just feel that there's been so much good because of it. I'll give you a little example of a story. I have a student, her name is Megan. She's did her student teaching this semester, and she's an honors student and did her honors thesis on Jack and his eye gaze device. And she has worked with him for over a year now and has brought so much independence to him using this eye gaze device. Well, her whole entire family bought the Kindness Connects Us All t-shirt. And for his birthday, she sent me a picture. And of course, they were all socially distanced, but her mom and her dad and her were in the shirt, her boyfriend, and then her sister, both her sisters and her sister and her husband were all in their Kindness Connects Us All t-shirt for Jack's birthday. It was just so sweet and so special to know that, these people bought a t-shirt to support Jack. Yeah. And from that, we were able to purchase the ceiling track system. Our contractors installed it for us. It has been such a help. He's getting big. He's a big boy, and he's very floppy. So we have it placed over his bed. So we're able to slide him onto that, hook him up in a sling, take him for a little ride, which I think he really enjoys. We usually spin him around a time or two.
Yeah, it's like the roller coaster in the house. Yeah,
it is. Yeah. It is. So we lower him into his seat, and then we're able to move him around the house so much easier. So it saved our backs a lot.
Yeah, because
people,
before, did you have any support system to help move him, or was it just
No. And a regular, we could have gotten a regular Hoyer lift, but the platform that we have his bed on, because we're so tall, it wouldn't, there's no room for wheels to roll under, so it wouldn't have worked. The only option we really had was the ceiling track. So we're so thankful to have that now, and we're getting more and more used to using it. His nurses and I are just used to heave and ho and pick him up.
Yeah.
But it's really helped a lot. So,
well, I'm glad that has been a blessing, and that's important. And we love to hear that. And, to hear you talk about the support and really it being so much more than financial, that's encouraging, because that's a lesson that even, that I learned early on, and kind of when we rebooted Go Shout Love, is I kind of saw it as that our primary focus was to raise funds for these families. And I have learned in having having these conversations with the families that the community, the power of having their story told, the power of receiving words of encouragement, and that feeling of being loved and supported is just as much valuable, if not more so, in a lot of cases. And so it's good to hear that and to have that affirmed.
Yeah.
So, okay, last question. And this one is not on the questions that I sent over, so I'm going to spring one on you. Outside of Kindness Connects Us All, because of the emotional connection that you have with that month, what is your favorite Go Shout Love t-shirt?
Oh, you mean outside of?
Yes. You can't pick that one.
I love that one.
Yeah, you can't pick that one.
I can't.
No.
Oh. Well, let me look at my closet here. I have the one, the love. It was more recent. Love Needs No Words.
Yep.
I wear that one quite frequently because Jack can't talk, and I know that he loves me. Yeah. So that one really spoke to me. So Yeah,
Good deal.
that would probably be my favorite.
Good deal.
But right now I'm sporting just my regular blue with the white words, Go Shout Love.
Oh, the logo tee.
So,
Yes. Awesome.
the logo tee. So, yeah.
Well, thank you for continuing to shout love for other families. That means a lot, not only to our team, but obviously to the families that are being shouted for each month. And so thank you for being part of our family. Thanks for sharing Jack with us and sharing this weird, strange season that we're in and kind of giving us a different perspective, but then also just a general life update on Jack. So it's been great to talk with you and
thank you.
Give Jack and Jim our best.
I will. Thank you so much, Josh. I really enjoyed talking to you guys. And if you need anything at all, just let me know. I'm happy to help.
All right. We appreciate it. Thanks, Cassie.
Thank you so much for listening. It is encouraging to hear the impact and the love that all of you shouters have had on these families. I could listen to the last 7 minutes of that conversation over and over again. That is why we are here, and that is why we appreciate everyone who is out there shouting love with us. As I mentioned before, please share this podcast with someone who may need an encouraging word. Cassie is so eloquent and open that I can't help but think someone else could be blessed by this conversation. Stay tuned, because next week we get to introduce you to our next feature kiddo, a fantastic family and story. We can't wait to share that with you. In the meantime, share this podcast, shop at our website, wear your shirt, and go shout love.